The second window that you come to as you enter the sanctuary at First Baptist Church of Pensacola is this beautiful picture of a lamb. And it represents something that Jesus' cousin John the Baptist is what we call him, he said that Jesus was the Lamb of God. But let me tell you how he said that, the context in which he said this. John the Baptist had a really great ministry, or he was leading a pretty powerful movement along the banks of what we call the Jordan River. And he was there doing what he did. He was baptizing folks and preaching. So there's his name, John the Baptist. And he sees out in the crowd, somehow God allows him to see in the crowd his cousin. And when he sees his cousin Jesus, he says, "Behold," or "Look, the Lamb of God that takes away the sins of the earth." Now, there's something very important in this as we think about the Lamb of God. It's deep thinking about God. And it's ancient thinking about God. I want us to try in this brief video just to move it to the irreducible minimums of what John said. And let's look at three of the words: look, sin, and lamb. I know that's not the order in which he said them, but just for the sake of this video, in this teaching, let's look at those three words: look. You'll notice what happens whenever someone recognizes Jesus for who he truly is. The attention comes off of them and it goes on to Jesus. And that's what happens in John. He's got a powerful ministry going. He's leading a strong movement, and all of a sudden it is not about him anymore. He says, look. And this is true of any of us who ever recognize Jesus for who he is. It's not about us anymore. You know, our pastor, Dave Snyder, often says, it's not about me, it's not about you, it is about Jesus. And that's the first thing. And the next thing that I want us to look at is that John talked about the sins of the world. What is sin? So many times this word sin is not a popular word because we think that sin is some kind of arbitrary listing of things that are bad, things that are wrong. And of course, sin is bad. Sin are those things we do wrong, but why? Well, the reason is because it breaks the heart of God. And why does it break the heart of God? Because it breaks relationships. Many of us grew up learning about the Ten Commandments. But have you ever thought about the Ten Commandments? Every one of those has to do with a breaking of a relationship. Either our relationship with God in those first of the Ten Commandments, or our breaking of a relationship with someone else in the latter commandments. And what John's saying is that thing, sin, is going to be taken away by the one named Jesus, who is this Lamb of God. Sin, it does three things in our hearts and in our lives and our relationships. It creates dissonance, it creates distance, and it ultimately creates death. That dissonance, we can't hear God. The piece of us that's built to hear God, we can't hear him as clearly. And that part of us that is supposed to connect with God, it moves away from him. That part of us that's supposed to connect to others, it moves away from them. And it ultimately leads to the death of that which connects with God and is built to connect with God. The Lamb of God, Jesus, seeks to remove the distance and to thwart the death and make it where we can clearly hear from God. Again, this is deep thinking about God. It goes back all the way to Egypt and the Hebrew children there, that there had to be a sacrifice for that sin. In fact, the writer of Hebrews would say, without the shedding of blood, there is no forgiveness of sin. And in this brief video, we can't do it justice, but understand this. The writer of Hebrews would also say this. He would say that Jesus died for those sins once and for all. Once and for all. So that you could connect deeply with God. So you could hear him clearly and connect with him closely and live a life that is truly life. So I want to ask you this today, as you're looking at this video, or tonight, if that's when you choose to look at it. Have you allowed the Lamb of God to take away the sin in your life? And if you ever have the privilege of sitting in this sanctuary and worshiping God in this sanctuary, have you ever looked at this window and just said, God, thank you. Thank you that I don't have to live a life where I cannot clearly hear you. That I don't have to live a life distanced from you. that I don't have to live a life on a pathway to death, but I can live a life that is truly life. Because look, the Lamb of God that takes away the sins of the world. Thank you for pondering this sacred saying with me today.